I never imagined my life could change so drastically in just 1 year. As an architectural engineer, I had always carefully designed my future, just like my buildings. Then I caught my fiancée Megan cheating with her coworker just 2 months before our wedding. Standing in the doorway of our bedroom, watching my future crumble, the last words she said to me cut deeper than the betrayal itself. "You will never find anyone like me. You are too ordinary, too safe." She was right about one thing. I would never find anyone like her. Instead, I found someone infinitely better. Before I dive into how my world fell apart and came back together even better, drop a comment letting me know where you are watching from. And hit subscribe if you have ever had to rebuild after betrayal. Trust me, this comeback story will be worth every minute. I grew up in a middle-class neighborhood in Portland, the kind of place where neighbors know each other and kids ride bikes until streetlights come on. My parents raised me to value hard work and honesty, which shaped my approach to life and eventually my career as an architectural engineer. By 32, I had established myself at a respected firm, designing sustainable structures that balanced functionality with environmental consciousness. I met Megan at my college friend Tyler's housewarming party 4 years ago. She walked in with confidence that immediately caught my attention. Stylish in a burgundy dress, laughing with easy charm that drew people to her. When Tyler introduced us, she seemed genuinely interested in my work, asking thoughtful questions about sustainable design that most people at parties glazed over. "An architect with environmental ethics," she said, clinking her glass against mine. "That is refreshing." Our connection felt immediate and natural. We exchanged numbers, and by the next morning she had texted suggesting coffee that weekend. Our relationship progressed rapidly after that. Dating for 6 months, meeting families during holidays, and moving in together after our first anniversary. Everything felt right, like pieces falling perfectly into place. On our 3-year anniversary, I proposed at Cliffside, an upscale restaurant overlooking the city where we had our first official date. I had arranged everything meticulously. A private corner table, her favorite flowers, champagne waiting. When I got down on one knee and opened the ring box, her eyes filled with tears. "Yes, 1,000 times yes," she said as other diners applauded. The following months were a whirlwind of wedding planning. We booked a beautiful vineyard venue, sent invitations to 200 guests, and coordinated with vendors. Megan threw herself into every detail, from the exact shade of flowers to personalized cocktails. I was happy to let her take the lead, wanting her to have the perfect day she described in such vivid detail. 2 months before the wedding date, I began noticing subtle changes. Megan started working late more frequently. Her texts became sporadic and vague. She guarded her phone carefully, turning it face down whenever I entered the room, and taking calls in another room. When I asked if everything was okay, she blamed wedding stress and deadlines at her marketing firm. "You would not understand the pressure I am under right now," she snapped when I pressed further. "Between work and planning a wedding you barely help with, I am exhausted." I backed off, feeling guilty for adding to her stress. Instead, I tried to be more supportive, taking over some wedding tasks and surprising her with dinner when she worked late. That Thursday, I was scheduled to visit a construction site in Seattle, planning to stay overnight. My morning meeting finished earlier than expected, and I decided to catch an afternoon flight home instead of staying over. I thought I would surprise Megan with takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant and maybe help address those wedding thank you cards she had been stressing about. When my key turned in the lock of our apartment around 4:30 in the afternoon, I expected to find it empty. Instead, I heard music playing softly from our bedroom. Thinking Megan must have come home sick, I walked toward the bedroom, takeout bags in hand. The sight that greeted me is forever burned into my memory. Megan was in our bed with a man I recognized as Jason from her office. The same Jason she had described as arrogant and annoying whenever she mentioned him. The same Jason who was apparently not so annoying after all. They did not notice me immediately. When they did, the room froze in a terrible tableau. Megan's expression cycled rapidly through shock, embarrassment, and then, most surprisingly, irritation, as if I had inconvenienced her by coming home early. "Lionel," she said, pulling the sheet up, "you are supposed to be in Seattle." Jason grabbed his clothes and mumbled something about waiting in the living room. Neither of them seemed as devastated as I felt, which somehow made it worse. "How long has this been going on?" I asked when Jason had left the room. "Does it matter?" Megan sighed, as if we were discussing something trivial like a missed dinner reservation. "It matters to me. We are getting married in 8 weeks. She laughed then, a cold sound I had never heard from her before. "No, we are not. Let us be honest, Lionel. This has been coming for a while." "What are you talking about? I thought we were happy. Happy we were comfortable. There is a difference." She started getting dressed, her movements unhurried. "You are reliable, stable. That is why I said yes when you proposed. But then I realized I would be signing up for a lifetime of predictability." Each word felt like a physical blow. "So you cheat instead of talking to me." I tried dropping hints. "You never picked up on them." She shrugged. "Jason excites me. He takes risks. He is spontaneous. So this is my fault. For being reliable, it is nobody's fault. We want different things." She gathered her phone and keys. "I will stay at Ashley's tonight. You should take some time to process this." As she headed for the door, I found my voice again. "That is it. 4 years together, and you are just walking out." She turned back, her expression almost pitying. "You will never find anyone like me, Lionel. You are too ordinary, too safe. I did you a favor by showing you that before we got married." With those final cutting words, she left with Jason, leaving me standing alone in our apartment, surrounded by the remnants of what I thought was a shared future. The following weeks passed in a blur of painful logistics. I called the venue to cancel our reservation, losing the substantial deposit. I contacted guests to explain the wedding was off, crafting a vague email about mutual decisions to preserve some dignity. Megan's parents called her mother, crying, asking what had happened to change their daughter's mind. I could not bring myself to tell them the truth. I moved out of our shared apartment into a small studio that felt more like a hotel room than a home. Blank walls, minimal furniture, nothing personal. I left most of our shared possessions with Megan, wanting nothing that would remind me of her. Depression settled over me like a heavy fog. I lost 15 pounds, my clothes hanging loosely on my frame. Sleep became elusive, and when it came, it was filled with dreams of Megan. My work suffered as I struggled to focus on design specifications and client needs. Coworkers noticed, but gave me space, attributing my behavior to typical breakup blues, without knowing the full, humiliating story. Friends tried to help. They invited me to dinners, suggested nights out, offered sympathetic ears. I declined most invitations, preferring to sit alone in my sparse apartment, replaying Megan's final words. "Too ordinary, too safe." The phrases circled endlessly in my mind, confirming insecurities I had harbored, but never acknowledged. My breaking point came 3 months after the breakup. I had an important presentation for a potential client, a sustainable housing development that could establish our firm in a new market. I had barely prepared, assuming I could rely on talent and experience to carry me through. I was wrong. Standing before the clients, my mind went blank. I fumbled through slides, mixed up key statistics, and could not answer basic questions about my own designs. The clients exchanged concerned glances, and my boss, Richard, stepped in to salvage what he could of the presentation. Afterward, Richard called me into his office. I expected a reprimand, or possibly worse. Instead, he closed the door and spoke with unexpected compassion. "I know about Megan," he said, surprising me. "Tyler told me what happened. I have given you space to process. But after today, I cannot stay silent. I stared at the floor, embarrassed and defensive. Look at me, Lionel. His voice was firm. You are allowing her to destroy your career now, too. You are letting her win by destroying yourself. Is that what you want? His blunt assessment cut through the fog I had been living in. No, I replied the word, feeling foreign after months of passive existence. Good. Take the rest of the week off. Not to sit in your apartment, but to make a plan. When you come back Monday, I want to see the Lionel I hired, the one with drive and vision. That conversation was my wake-up call. I spent the weekend confronting how thoroughly I had allowed Megan's betrayal to derail my life. By Sunday night, I had made a decision I would rebuild myself better than before. Not to prove anything to Megan, but because I deserved more than being defined by her rejection. My transformation began with physical change. I joined a gym near my apartment and hired Marcus, a personal trainer who did not accept excuses or self-pity. 3 mornings a week, he pushed me through punishing workouts that left me exhausted but oddly clear-headed. Channel that anger, Marcus would say when I wanted to quit. Use it as fuel. And I did. Every repetition, every mile on the treadmill, became a step away from the man who had stood frozen in that bedroom doorway. The physical pain of training provided relief from the emotional pain that had consumed me. I overhauled my diet with the same determination, learning to cook nutritious meals instead of surviving on delivery pizza and microwave dinners. I cut back on alcohol, recognizing how it fed my depression, rather than alleviating it. Within weeks, I not only regained the weight I had lost, but began developing muscle definition I had never had before. At work, I threw myself into a challenging new project, designing an eco-friendly community center for an underserved neighborhood. The complex requirements of balancing sustainability with budget constraints and community needs provided the perfect focus for my renewed energy. I stayed late researching innovative materials, consulted with community leaders to understand their needs, and developed solutions that exceeded initial expectations. Richard noticed the change. "This is excellent work," he said, reviewing my revised proposals. "The old Lionel is back. Actually, an improved version. I found a new apartment, one I chose for myself, rather than settled for in desperation. It had large windows overlooking the city, a small balcony where I could have morning coffee, and enough space to set up a drafting table for weekend projects. I furnished it thoughtfully, creating a space that reflected who I was becoming rather than who I had lost. Socially, I began reconnecting with friends I had neglected during my relationship with Megan and my subsequent withdrawal. I discovered many had seen problems in our relationship that I had been blind to. She always needed to be the center of attention, my friend David admitted during a hiking trip. When you talked about your work or accomplishments, she would somehow turn the conversation back to herself. "Why did you never say anything?" I asked, realizing how many red flags I had missed. We tried subtly. "You seemed happy, and it was not our place to interfere." Those conversations helped me gain perspective. I also began exploring new interests, joining a weekend photography group and attending lectures at the local architectural society. I found myself enjoying activities I had always been curious about, but had never pursued because they did not interest Megan. Through it all, weekly therapy sessions helped me understand the dynamics that had made me vulnerable to someone like Megan. I recognized my tendency to people please, to ignore warning signs, to value harmony over honesty. My therapist helped me develop boundaries and recognize my own worth beyond what I could provide for others. Relationships should add to your life, not define it, Dr. Winters told me. The right partner enhances who you already are, rather than making you feel inadequate. 6 months into my journey of rebuilding, I realized something remarkable. I had gone weeks without thinking about Megan. The anger and humiliation that had once consumed me had faded into occasional moments of gratitude that I had discovered her true character before marriage, not after. It was around this time that my Instagram pinged with a message that would unexpectedly change everything. "Congratulations on the community center project. Just saw it featured in Design Monthly. Your talent was obvious even back in Mrs. Harmon's drafting class. Hannah Clark. I stared at the message for several minutes trying to place the name. Hannah Clark. When recognition dawned, I was genuinely surprised. Hannah had been one of the most popular girls in our high school. Beautiful, smart, always surrounded by friends and admirers. We had shared a few classes, but rarely interacted directly. I had been the quiet, focused kid, usually found sketching buildings in the back row. I replied with a simple thank you and a polite question about what she had been up to since high school. Her response came quickly, mentioning she had been working as a model for several major clothing brands and had recently moved back to Portland after living in New York for years. Our exchange continued over the next few days, each message longer than the last. There was an ease to our conversation that intrigued me. When she suggested meeting for coffee to catch up properly, I agreed without the hesitation that had characterized my social interactions since Megan. We met at a small cafe near the community center I had designed. I arrived early, securing a table by the window, and found myself uncharacteristically nervous. When Hannah walked in, I almost did not recognize her. The high school image I had carried, of a somewhat intimidating beauty queen, was replaced by a woman with genuine warmth in her smile and an understated elegance. "Lionel," she said, extending her hand. "It is wonderful to see you again." Our planned quick coffee extended into a 2-hour conversation. Hannah was surprisingly easy to talk to, asking thoughtful questions about my architectural philosophy and listening with genuine interest. She spoke about her modeling career with both pride and a self-deprecating humor that put me at ease. "I was so nervous to message you," she admitted, as our meeting drew to a close. "I worried you might not remember me." "Why would you be nervous? You were Hannah Clark. Everyone knew who you were." She laughed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "That is funny because I had the biggest crush on you throughout high school." I nearly choked on my last sip of coffee. "What on me? Is that so hard to believe I was too shy to talk to the cute, smart guy who was always sketching buildings in the back of class? I used to look for your designs in the school newspaper every month." The revelation left me speechless. All those years, while I had felt invisible to someone like her, she had been noticing me. We began meeting regularly. Coffee shops, art galleries, weekend farmers markets. Hannah was nothing like I expected a successful model to be. She was down-to-earth, intelligent, passionate about environmental causes, and genuinely interested in architecture. I learned that beyond her modeling work, she had earned a degree in environmental science and consulted with fashion brands on sustainability practices. Despite the natural connection developing between us, I maintained some emotional distance, still processing the wounds from Megan's betrayal. Hannah never pushed, seeming to intuitively understand my hesitation. "I know you are going through something," she said during one of our walks. "When or if you want to talk about it, I am here. But no pressure." Her patience and understanding only made her more appealing. Eventually, I shared the full story of my failed engagement. To my surprise, talking about it with Hannah did not reopen the wound, but somehow helped finalize its healing. The defining moment in our evolving relationship came unexpectedly. We were having dinner at a new restaurant downtown when I spotted Megan and Jason being seated across the room. My stomach tightened instinctively, but the expected wave of pain did not come. Hannah noticed my change in expression. "What is it?" "My ex-fiancé and the guy she cheated with just walked in," I said quietly. Before I could suggest leaving, Megan spotted us. After a momentary deer in headlights expression, she plastered on a smile and headed toward our table, pulling a reluctant-looking Jason along. "Lionel, what a coincidence," she said, eyes darting curiously to Hannah. I could see her taking in Hannah's model good looks, designer dress, and natural poise. "Megan," I nodded, surprised by how calm I felt. "This is Hannah. Nice to meet you," Hannah said, with genuine politeness. "Lionel has mentioned you." Megan's smile faltered slightly. All good things, I hope. He mentioned you were part of his journey. Hannah replied smoothly, neither confirming nor denying. An awkward silence followed before Megan attempted recovery. You look good, Lionel. Working out. Among other things, I replied. The community center project has kept me busy. It just won regional recognition. I always knew you were talented, Megan said, as if she had been my biggest supporter rather than someone who had called me ordinary. We should catch up sometime. I think we have said everything that needs saying, I responded, not unkindly but firmly. After they returned to their table, Hannah reached across and squeezed my hand. You okay? Surprisingly, yes, I realized. Actually better than okay. Looking at Megan across the restaurant, all I saw was a person from my past, not the center of my universe. The contrast between her and Hannah was stark. Not just in appearance, but in authenticity. Where Megan performed, Hannah simply was. That evening after dinner, we walked along the waterfront. The conversation flowed naturally from architecture to childhood memories to future dreams. When Hannah shivered slightly in the evening breeze, I put my jacket around her shoulders. Thank you for tonight, I said. Not just for dinner, but for how you handled meeting Megan. It was nothing, she replied, though I admit it was interesting to finally put a face to the name. Can I ask you something? Why me? You could be with anyone. Successful businessmen, actors, whoever you meet through your modeling work. Hannah stopped walking and turned to face me directly. Because they are not you, Lionel. They do not see the beauty in structural integrity or get excited about sustainable building materials. They do not have your quiet strength or thoughtfulness. Under the glow of the waterfront lights, I leaned in and kissed her. Unlike the calculated passion I had experienced with Megan, this kiss felt like coming home to something genuine and true. 6 months into dating Hannah, my life had transformed in ways I never imagined possible. Where my relationship with Megan had often felt like walking on eggshells, constantly trying to maintain her interest and approval, being with Hannah was like breathing fresh air after years in a stuffy room. The differences between them became more apparent daily. Megan had treated my career as something that supported our lifestyle, but was not particularly interesting. Hannah asked thoughtful questions about my projects, offered insightful perspectives, and even attended community meetings where my designs were discussed. I love watching you talk about your work, she told me. After one presentation, your whole face lights up when you explain how a design will improve people's daily lives. Our communication patterns were equally different. With Megan, disagreements often devolved into her shutting down or making me feel I had failed her in some way. With Hannah, we could discuss differing perspectives, respectfully finding compromise, or simply agreeing to respect our differences. One weekend, we took a trip to a coastal town where Hannah was doing a photo shoot. I had been nervous about meeting her industry colleagues, imagining they might view me as too ordinary for someone like her. Instead, I found myself welcomed into her professional world. Hannah proudly introduced me to photographers, stylists, and other models, clearly comfortable, integrating all aspects of her life. Watching her work, I was struck by a humbling realization: this incredible woman, pursued by famous and wealthy admirers, had chosen me. Not because I was safe or a backup plan, but because she genuinely valued who I was. The true test of my healing came unexpectedly during a routine grocery shopping trip. Turning the corner into the produce section, I nearly collided with Megan shopping alone with a small basket. Lionel, she said, surprise evident in her voice. How have you been? Good, I replied honestly. Really good, actually. She nodded, eyes assessing me. You look it. I heard about your community center project winning that award. Congratulations. Thank you, I said, feeling neither pride at her acknowledgement nor resentment at her sudden interest in my accomplishments. After a moment of awkward silence, she spoke again, her voice lower. Jason and I broke up. It did not work out the way I thought it would. I am sorry to hear that, I said, genuinely meaning it. Are you? She moved closer. I have been thinking about us lately, about what we had. I miss it. I miss what we had. I made a mistake. A year ago, those words might have sent me into emotional turmoil. Now they simply registered as a statement from someone I used to know. Megan, I said gently, I am with Hannah now. We are happy together. The model, she said with a slight edge. Is it serious? Yes, I replied without hesitation. It is. She looked away briefly, composing herself. Well, maybe we could get coffee sometime just as friends, for closure. I appreciate the offer, but I have all the closure I need, I told her. I am grateful things worked out the way they did. As I walked away, I realized I meant every word. There was no remaining anger, no attachment, no what-ifs, just appreciation for the journey that had led me where I needed to be. My relationship with Hannah continued to deepen. We began discussing moving in together, taking our time to ensure we both felt ready. My firm promoted me to partner following the success of the community center project, giving me more creative control and a significant raise. Hannah was featured in a national campaign, celebrating natural beauty and intelligence, breaking stereotypes about models being valued solely for appearance. What struck me most about our relationship was how we supported each other's dreams, without jealousy or competition. Hannah celebrated my professional achievements as if they were her own, while I felt genuine pride watching her career flourish. Unlike my relationship with Megan, where success often created tension, our individual accomplishments strengthened our bond. On our one-year anniversary, Hannah surprised me with a thoughtfully wrapped gift. Opening it, I found a beautifully framed collection of my high school architectural sketches from the school newspaper. You kept these? All this time, I asked, genuinely moved. Every single one, she admitted, slightly embarrassed. I always believed you would design beautiful things that would change people's lives, and you have. Looking at the yellowed newspaper clippings, I was struck by the beautiful irony of my journey. Megan's cruel parting words, that I would never find anyone like her, had proven true in the most unexpected and wonderful way. I had found someone infinitely better. Someone who had seen value in me long before I recognized it in myself. Someone who enhanced, rather than diminished, who I was. The painful experience that once felt like the end of my world had actually been the beginning of something authentic and true. The forced demolition of what I thought I wanted had cleared space for what I actually needed. Have you ever had something fall apart, only to find something better was waiting for you? Share your stories of rebuilding in the comments below. And if this story of finding something better after heartbreak resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories of life's unexpected turns. Share this video with anyone who might need reassurance that better things often follow our most painful moments. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the people who try to tear you down are just making space for the ones who will truly appreciate you.